Draken Joe, legitimately, the dude's pretty quick on his feet. Like, it was it last chapter, he decided to get out, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go get my feet into things. You know, dip my toes in the water and go take care of these guys. He stepped out like what, like in the middle of chapter 92, and now he's he shows up and he does it in a pretty like aggressive fashion too, because like the chapter starts out. As we left off, like on the last page, we had a mirror reveal that she wasn't Lobelia, and we get teased a little bit when she's talking to them this chapter of like talking about, I've been on this mission and whatnot. I'm supposed to find that information on Drac and Joe. That was what I was doing in Digitalis, and that's essentially like what led me to here. Like she ended up like transforming and turning into like one of the dancers at one of the clubs, and then ended up finding Lobelia taking over her spot, and then what led to currently right now in the story where they went to go get her, and then it turns out it's not her. So Lobelia is there. She actually gets found by Hamura, but right now with Amira, she mentions her mission. She doesn't tell him about Gia or anything. She just says, "Okay, we'll get to that later when they start to ask." But at the moment, she's like Drac and Joe as the bigger thing to deal with, the bigger kind of like aspect that they all are clearly faced with, and taking him down is main priority. Like she wants to turn into Drac and Joe. Like that was her thing. She wanted to turn into him so she could find out information about him. Essentially, how her powers work. I think the easiest way to describe it, it's like Gemini fairy tale, but you don't get their powers. Like you get their thoughts. You can get their their mannerisms and whatnot. The only thing that you don't get is their abilities. And like turning into him, obviously at that point you would know stuff that he knows, find out what his weaknesses are. They're like, okay, you guys pretty much found it with the whole fact he's gotta keep himself like young and regenerated, and who knows like if that's going to be like the big way that they fight him. I can see it kind of going the way of something kind of with Hades, and the fact that they had to pretty much destroy destroy his heart in order to even stand a chance against him. Because with Drac and Joe, we don't know exactly how his power works. Maybe like as long as the machine's up, it'll kind of like fuel him and he's able to kind of like sustain it. Because otherwise it'd be like, well, you can destroy the machine, but all he would have to do is kind of leave and not risk fighting you guys while he aged, and then get a new machine, or figure out some other concept on how to do it. I'm wondering why he doesn't like get a cyborg body and put his brain in it. Maybe that's like his last resort. He's like, that's getting into some dangerous territory. I don't really know if I want to do that. It's fully up there. I completely see it as part of, it's within their technology. I mean, look at Jin. Jin is like a cyborg. So Drac and Joe should be capable, and especially like not only in the fact that their world has the technology for it. He's got the money and like the influence and the connections. And it probably could get it done just fine. I wonder what his reasoning would be. Like maybe he's thought about it, but he's like, I want to stay as human as I possibly can. Which, I mean, if you're like doing some weird science to to de-age yourself, you're pretty much already away from it at that point. But right now he comes into the fray. Like he just shows up, turns the ground into tar, and guys are starting to sink in there. You have like Sibber, like that dude right now. I think is like he needs to get the hell out of there. He doesn't have any like powers. He can't really fight. I mean, even back when we saw him in the younger point, like went back during the normal like little mini arc. I mean, he just had a mech. I mean, outside of that, we don't know if he really could do anything. It's not like he's gonna contend here when he's a like crotchety old man. But Drac and Joe, I thought it was cool that he can walk on his tar too, because always it's like a liquid to them. A big gross tar. It's all thick and sticky and. I don't want to be there. I've stepped in tar before, not delightful. I can imagine tar like up to your shoulders. Probably feels horrible, like swimming in like jelly or something. But I imagine it'd smell way worse too. But Shiki's not allowing this. He uses his ether gear to pretty much break the floor, anything that's left. So it just kind of like drags down all of the tar. I really did like this panel just because of the way that the tar was kind of outlined in the areas that it was affected, and you just had these kind of like very, very crisp, like smooth edges where it was. It wasn't cut, it wasn't burned, it wasn't smashed, it was transformed, it was altered. So everything beyond that point just essentially was never connected to it. It just was like, oh no, it's like we've always been this way. There's nothing going to be like a determining factor that say like, oh yeah, it was changed through force or energy. It was straight altered at its. I would imagine at like the atomic level or something kind of crazy. Because with the Ether Gear right now, and I still think this, and I'm hoping that Hiroshima sticks to it, is the Ether Gears right now in Eden Zero they're way more flexible than anything. Like the powers have all been like, okay, yeah, you got this power, but it's more of like the different like ways you could use it in this scenario rather than just like kind of like big power levels and stuff. I still personally would really like it if Ether Gears were more like this. They're more like hacks and you can do different kind of things with them. It's more of like, oh yeah, they're hard to handle abilities. It's more of like figuring out your way around them rather than just like if they got a just straight like very powerful ability. That I want the like big power level stuff in Eden Zero to come from the ships. I think it would just make the ships more stay more relevant and hold more kind of like importance in the series. And I know they're not the same series, but it's just kind of something to compare it to. It's like you have One Piece and you have like all the pirates and stuff. Almost every character has a ship, but their ships, I mean, they're there for transportation, but because of like how powerful the characters are and how weak the ships are, like at sea battles are almost useless. Like you can't really do much with it because, I mean, what are they going to shoot cannonballs? Like most of the characters can just backhand cannonballs. It's not going to do anything. If like the ships were all like way stronger than they were, then maybe like they could contend a little bit, but with Eden Zero, if all the big weapons are all, oh yeah, our spaceships, you got the Eden Zero, you got the Belly Goer and whatnot, it would just make them a lot more interesting and just like, oh yeah, well, what's this guy's ship gonna do? Because then at the same time of not only like, oh yeah, well, the ships are gonna be a big focal point of outer space battles and stuff, but it's like, oh yeah, new group. You already got stuff like, okay, their characters and whatnot, their Ether Gear, but it would be really neat to always know like, they're going to have a powerful ship. What is their ship going to do? What exactly is their spaceship capable of? Just to kind of add their own, like, its own spice to the series. And, like, Eden Zero already, like, feels like its own thing. I know people will, like, say it's for its own space. It's definitely not. I mean, a lot of the characters are very different and the plot's different. It's got a completely different feel to it. It's just got the same artist. But I think it would give it its own kind of special flavor as a series if it had something like that where, like every single character, like or every single group when they show up, it's like, oh yeah, okay, what's their ship gonna be like? What exactly is their spaceship going to be able to do? How powerful is it gonna be? And it's just always like a little addition onto each and every time like someone else shows up. Just that question, because then if you have a series where like one of the main factors is like, okay, group, what is their ship capable of? I mean, can you think of any other series that does something similar to that? The only one I can think of that it kind of has its own like little spice, at least off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a bunch right now. Jujutsu Kaisen kind of has it right now with characters that have area expansions, because they're also kind of like they're part of their ability, and it says something about themselves. It's something kind of like rooted off the characters as well. So I always thought that was just a really cool concept, because it does, every character is going to have their own kind of unique one. They're all going to stand out, and it just adds a little extra flavor for it. It's like, with Bleach had, Bankais and Resurrections and the Holy Forms for the Quincy's and stuff. Just having that, oh yeah, a baseline, special kind of like aspect. It's not just like, oh yeah, what is their powers? It's what exactly is this, trait of the series gonna contain. I'm trying to think of more stuff just off the top of my head, that we can kind of compare it to, just to kind of get a feel. I think that with like stuff like Bankais and stuff, it adds an extra flavor to it, because you're still gonna get the characters and like, oh, okay, what is their ability gonna do? But it's like, well, what is their Bankai not just do, but what is it gonna look like? How's it gonna be presented? That's how I think like the ships will be. Hopefully, if Eden Zero doesn't go too crazy with the power levels, and then the ships become useless. But because if we get down to it, like it gets too crazy, what's gonna stop in characters from just immediately going to the ships and be like, all right, I'll destroy a ship. I'm fully capable of like wiping a ship out by myself, one of these big warships. And so it's just gonna be like, well, might as well not need ships. Just get a spacesuit and send the guy out, and he'll just blow it up. But other than that, though, pretty solid chapter. I like the setup. We got Drac and Joe versus Shiki round 2. We already had Rebecca, and I rambled on a little bit without getting like the last little bits. But I mean, the last little bits were pretty much just Shiki like pairing up to fight Drac and Joe. If he doesn't go for the overdrive, like if he just kind of fights him with the base ether line form for a little bit, I can see Shiki do like contending, but obviously I don't think he's gonna win. Once we get Jin, we don't even know where Jin is currently. Once we get Jin to join the team, I think Shiki has a much better chance. Because those two together, I think will do fine. Because it'll be a battle not only of like 3 powerful characters, but with the way that Drac and Joe, Shiki, and Jin's powers like all right now, I think their biggest aspect is their flexibility. Okay, you got anti-gravity, you got gravity manipulation, you can have anti-gravity, increased gravity, you got wind manipulation, you can have compressed air, flight, and whatnot. I mean, alchemy in general, just converting things into other things. You can do a lot with it. It's that kind of super flexible, like, okay, it's more about like how you incorporate the power than directly what the power does. But other than that, though, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about this chapter and what you think thoughts are about what's coming. Do you agree with the whole ship stuff? I don't know. I think it'd be cooler if like the ships were more relevant and characters didn't get kind of too crazy where their ships don't really matter. But yeah, other than that, thumbs up the video from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. And I thank you all for listening. Bye.